What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the HBO original series, Welcome to Derry. This will follow the penultimate episode, which is episode 7, is called The Black Spot. It's directed by Andy Muschietti. Woo! Okay, guys. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. That was an episode. That was a real good episode. That was a really sad, really heartbreaking, really chaotic episode. This is the second time I've had to record this video, just to let you know, so I'm trying my best to be as emotional this time, because the last one didn't have sound, so be aware of that. But to get into this review, there is a lot of stuff in this episode. It is tightly packed. It is tightly wound. It is an episode that I was completely floored by, to be fairly honest. It is... You know, after the downward trend that this series has had this season, and there has been a lot of downward trends, it has found its footing in the last couple episodes. Not necessarily like they've been like the greatest, but it has found some really unique stuff, you know, with the Native American tribe and the kind of the kids in this episode, and in this series, and Marge having kind of a turnaround against the cupcakes. And it's been a really fascinating turn. And then we find out Madeleine Stowe's character, of course, is the daughter of the actual Pennywise clown, the dancing clown that the entity is basically masking itself as. And we find out a lot more about what Pennywise is and how it became what it is. But we'll get into that. I'm going to do that last because I think that's the most interesting thing of this episode. But it has a lot, to be fairly honest. It does a lot with like trying to aim the military into a place where they're going to fall and falter and be what the military does, which they find a piece of the pillar, Indiana Jones style, to be fairly honest. I was laughing because the music sounds very Indiana Jones. And I don't know, once again, I think it's really weird, the military stuff. It leads into, you know, Will Hanlon is, of course, abducted by Pennywise because the military decides they're going to take the pillar and they're going to use it against the enemy, against other, you know, characters. And once again, they have been warned that they cannot contain this entity, and that's what the pillars are. They contain the entity from causing any more chaos across the world. So it's really going to be interesting to see how this is a direct prequel to the the original It story. I find it fascinating that Will is taken by Pennywise, the entity, in that really cool sequence where he's basically woken up because he's going into his 27-year slumber or 28-year slumber. And we see him behind Will Hanlon. And it's creepy because Pennywise is like up to his mouth here, all bloody. And I really found that it's a very effective shot, to be fairly honest. The idea of him, how he sleeps, how Pennywise, it sleeps, is fascinating because it sleeps in a pool of blood. It's like a really effective, really interesting shot, to be fairly honest, when Pennywise wakes up again, because I'm assuming now it's just angry because it got woken up, because, you know, after it gets enough to be fed, it's like a bear. It goes to sleep for a certain amount of times. It goes and hibernates, like it says in the story, or in the episode, I should say. You know, the idea of like, you know, Leroy Hanlon trying to stop them, you know, and then finding out that, you know, the James Remar character is just a douchebag, and he thinks his ideologies and idealisms are going to get his people killed. I'm pretty sure it's one of those things where I guess okay, fine. Once again, the military stuff is not really that interesting. The stuff with Dick Halloran is just more of just like, what exactly is The Shining? What exactly does it do? It clearly sees dead people, as we see in the original Shining book, but it's more enhanced here. He is very affected by it. You know, he sees the chieftain Indian guy who was killed, who leads him on the way of finding the pillar, and he sees a lot of the dead people from the Black Spot. He sees a lot of dead people as he sees in the fire that are controlled by Pennywise. And he's a guy who's going to kind of honestly understand why he became a maintenance tech or whatever, a keeper of this house in the Overlook. And it's sad that, you know, his character. So I would actually, to be fairly honest, at this point, if they did a spinoff just called Halloran, I think I would be really fascinated by how Halloran got from where he is, where he is in this story, to just being kind of a disheveled mess, to where he gets to the point in the Shining itself. I think that would be a really interesting story to tell. Warner Brothers, if you're listening, I think you should tell it. But it's going to be it's a really interesting take. And once again, Halloran is more just kind of a set piece to find more about what the Shining is capable of doing to a character that has to keep it under wraps and keep it hidden, kind of like in Dreamcatcher, where it has to be locked away in a box. That's why when we see the last episode, when he is or the episode before, whatever, he's consumed by that dream sequence, and the box opens, and therefore is now let out. All these creatures are let out. It's like the Ghostbuster sequence when they turn off the the thing that's the containment unit and stuff like that. So I don't know. We'll see how that plays out, but it's going to be really interesting to see how it affects the end of this episode, and how it leads into, is Dick Halloran just going to go off Hulk style and just do and walk away sad, that kind of thing, or is he going to be in the asylum that Henry Bowers' character is, in the story, which is where Madeleine Stowe's character, I think, is being transported to and stuff like that. But yeah, the military stuff. Once again, there is the sequence where, clearly Will is not leaving Derry. I'm assuming Leroy Hanlon is going to be killed in the next episode. It's just the way it's playing out. Charlotte, of course, helps out Grogan's character to meet Rose and Tamlin, or is it Tanyan, or whatever his name is, the Indian kid who sees, of course, or Native American kid, I should say, who sees them taking the pillar, who warns Rose about it. I love this sequence where the Native Americans are like, well, I guess we got to wait another 27 years of protection, which, once again, they never come back at all in this series, in the chapter, at least not in the movies. You don't see them, I don't think. I can't remember offhand. I think they're in the book, but they're not in the movie. But once again, I love how the guy, the one Native American guy, just stands up and goes, well, I guess I'll see you in another 27 years when I'm probably 90 years old at that point. It's pretty funny and kind of goofy in a lot of respects. But once again, Charlotte and Leroy talking about how they're going to leave Derry at the end of, when the situation is over, is kind of weird, because once again, Mike is in the original book. He is a main character, so clearly Will is not leaving Derry. And once again, he is now under the spell of course, Pennywise the clown. Was once again, I can't remember if Will has to survive, and Will has to have a kid. So I don't know. It's very, you kind of have to kind of disregard it a little bit when it comes to its kind of ideologies and what it's trying to say. But I don't know. The military stuff's just weird to me. And like I said, they didn't need the military in this. It's a way for, them to do, add, plotting and stuff like that. I mean, whatever, it is what it is, but it's really effective in this episode. But it's the least effective part of this episode. I think one of the most effective parts is, of course, the black spot stuff, the white supremacist that we saw at the end of the episode, which includes the sheriff, which I think is Sheriff Bowers. They basically confront the black spot individuals who are African-American airmen and just people who are having a good time. And they want Grogan. They want Ronnie's father. And that, of course, is not going to go very well, because the soldiers, the individuals in the black spot, including the kids, Will, Ronnie, Marge, and of course Rich, refuse to let Grogan be taken. And that sets off a cascading events of a oneer, which of course is a one-take shot. I mean, there's probably cuts or whatever, but for the most part, it's a one-take shot of the white supremacists basically setting ablaze the black spot to the point where people are having trouble escaping. They are shooting at the individuals. People are dying left and right. Dick Halloran's trying to save himself, but he ends up, saving Will and of course Ronnie. Of course, Grogan gets shot in the leg or the arm or whatever. I think Dick Halloran gets shot. One of the main individuals gets shot and killed. A bunch of people get shot very violently. Take it here or there. It depends on how you feel about it, but it is quoting on, or it is entailing upon, the idea of racism in the 60s. Like what the Watchmen TV series did with the beginning, I think with I want to say somewhere in Alabama. I can't remember the exact story, but it's that situation where It is very effective. Whether it needed to be in this series, I don't entirely know, but I think if it weren't for Pennywise and that sequence where he takes the girl's hand and ends up eating her, it would be really out of place for a series like this. But then again, it's the idea of how Derry is like one of the most corrupted places in the world. It very much is an epitomization of the culture of the 60s and how racism was a really kind of chaotic element. You see that with how these guys are treated and how, the relationship between Grogan and I think one of the ladies or whatever. I can't remember offhand, but that relationship could lead to his death. The idea that these white supremacists are blaming Grogan because he owns a theater that these kids were killed in, which I understand. It's understandable to think that Grogan would be the killer. But the nature of what Pennywise does is it really shows that they are blinded by their own corruptious nature, their own fearful natures, which is what, it is about. It's about feeding off your fears and about the nature of like, how we use hate to empower ourselves and stuff like that, and that is what this segment does, and it leads into like people dying for stupid reasons, for not knowing who and what and the actual truth. We just go off our sense, and it's really kind of potent to what you think about in today's society, which is going through this kind of same traumatic events as we never learn from our past, that type of thing. But once again, the idea that Dick Halloran sees Pennywise, the idea of the kids seeing Pennywise, the idea of Pennywise having like his own, the Mountain of Madness episode in The Simpsons is what this reminded me of, because the ghosts appear behind Pennywise, who comes in like this very evil look, and it's just a really cool, effective shot in the fire. Pennywise is there, he's eating somebody, and he is doing his evilness to the people. And he has, like I said, dead people that Dick Halloran see behind him and stuff like that. Problem is, as they're trying to escape, he has to go back and get Marge and Rich, who are blocked in by, of course, the Deus Machina thing, where the fire and the wood crash down, so they are stuck in the black spot as it's burning down. And once again, it all depends on how you feel about the idea of like manipulation when it comes to the sadness, and when, like, let's say people die and they raise the music up. It's the dramatic manipulation of your emotions in a lot of respects, and depending on how you feel about that is going to be how you feel about what happens to Rich, because Marge have this developing relationship. Marge burns her hand, which is pretty crazy, and then Rich in the process realizes that they can't escape. We're not entirely sure of this yet. He finds a box it fits one person, and Marge doesn't realize what's happening. He puts her into the box, don't put baby in the box, but don't put Rich in the box. And Rich and Marge realizing what's happening, then Rich closes the box and sacrifices himself, expressing his love. She expresses her love, and he in essence, he probably would have burned to death, but he does burn, but he does die of smoke inhalation because his body's still there. Depending on how you feel about it, it is effective. I did tear up because Rich is a fun character in this series. And once again, people dying, it's an everyday occurrence. It happens. Sacrificing himself for her is going to make him a hero. It's one of the most sad things you'll see in a TV series, and it's brutally dark. And I give credit to Andy Muschietti because he's taking risks and he's taking chances, and killing kids is not an easy thing to do, and you do it in this fashion, it could be seen as a little gaudy and a little mean-spirited, but it is the nature of what the series does and what Stephen King is capable of as a writer. He didn't write the series, but I'm just saying, like, in his book, the It book, the young kid, Denborough's brother is violently killed by his arms being ripped off and his face being eaten, and it's just, it's Andy Muschietti just, like, once again going after the kids, and this time, a kid sacrifices himself for one he truly fell for it. And I don't think it's a perfect episode when it comes to that, because the relationship moves a little too quickly, to be fairly honest. There was one episode of them really being together and they have fun moments together and stuff like that, but I don't really feel like there's a lot of chemistry between the two characters. So I don't know. I mean, it's potent because it really shows that Rich was a hero, but it's also kind of like, Yeah, you needed more dimension. I know Pennywise is probably going to use it against Marge, and like I said, Lily's just not in this episode at all. Really, she's in a few things when they kind of take his stuff, his possessions, which I'm assuming they're going to use for the next episode. But it's just the structure of that is a little. It could be better, to be fairly honest. But it is sad. You do tear up. It is the music that it swells into your heartstrings, and depending on how you feel about it, depending on how you're gonna feel about this episode. But that's kind of the main structure, is just the black spot. The episode's called the black spot for a reason, but it's also like a black spot on this society, because once again, when it goes down and when they are in the town, when Pennywise is going to go off and sleep for whatever, they say, oh, it was an electrical incident, which is ironic, I guess you could say. And I don't know, it deals once again with the 60s and with racism, and very potent. But I do love the end of the sequence where we see one of the characters have regret on his face. We see one of the characters can't start his car. He's approached by the Madeleine Stowe character, who's of course in makeup, and she sees Pennywise behind her, and Pennywise is holding not a machete, but a butcher's knife or whatever, like a big butcher thing, and he chops off half the head of this guy, and he starts eating it as Madeleine Stowe's character is talking to him like it's her quote unquote father, and we know it's not. It's just a manifestation of the character. And when she comes to realize what's happening, instead of letting go, she approaches Pennywise, who's off to go to sleep for another 27 years till he's hungry again, and she's taken by the deadlights and carted off to, of course, the asylum that Henry Bowers eventually goes to. And I love the sequence. I love the sequence where when the deadlights are, also the turtle shells in this as well. But when the deadlights affects you, you rise off the ground. It's a really effective, cool sequence that was also done to Beverly's character. And it just shows, it's like when the mouth opens, and it just, I want to know more about what the deadlights do. I know that it goes into detail a little bit in the story of it itself, but the deadlights is just such a fascinating, cosmic, interesting kind of use of a villain character, and have power that it has over people, and how it's almost like a consumption of like our transfixation on like the insane deadly nature of society, and how we watch it and how we become transfixed, and how we kind of feel like we're rising above it all and stuff like that. It's a really cool sequence. But once again, the Madeleine Stowe character has been so entranced about trying to find her father after the incident that happens in the opening of the episode, that she just assumes that this is her father. And clearly it's not. It's a entity, it's a spirit creature, whatever you want to call it, that is forcing itself onto people and eating them and stuff like that. But the eating of the guy as she's talking to him is pretty effective and interesting. Watching the entity just kind of react to what she's saying, the smile, and just kind of the nature of looking and stuff like that. I love what Bill Skarsgård does as Pennywise. Is really cool, because the opening of this, which is a really cool sequence, the opening of this episode, really it actually kind of surprised me, because it makes me wonder what the 1908 or early 1900s segment of this season or the series is going to do, because we see the introduction we see Pennywise, the Bill Skarsgård character, in human form as a performer. It's kind of what you expect. He's a performer. He is a guy. He's an individual that has a daughter, of course, the Madeleine Stowe character, and he performs, but he's performing in Derry, which becomes kind of out of control as the kids jump on as he's doing his thing and start doing the dance that Pennywise does, that we saw, of course, in the movie itself. And you see in the background this character, which you assume is Pennywise, or the entity itself. And he's talking to his daughter. His daughter dresses as a clown. He ends up calling her Periwinkle, which doesn't make her very happy because it's her mother. So we know her mother's been killed or died at some point. I do think it's funny. I do laugh. It is comical that Pennywise sounds like Daniel Plainview, the way Bill Skarsgård talks. I'm pretty sure that's not his head, because his head's gigantic, like Stewie. It's just a really gigantic head, or maybe that is how he looked. I don't know. That doesn't seem like how Bill Skarsgård looked, but talking like Daniel Plainview is kind of takes you out of the episode a little bit. But his relationship with his daughter, and like he wants her to gracefully bow, and he sees how committed she is. You know, the look of her and stuff like that is really cool and really fun and energetic and stuff like that. And he is basically, as every person that is eaten by the entity, he's outside smoking, and he is approached by this creepy looking kid. And the creepy looking kid says, "Hey, you're really good at entertaining children." And of course, a clown is. Clowns are loved by children. I don't know why, because clowns are horrifying. But in general, clowns by probably 85% of kids is something that entrances them, makes them feel happy. The balloon animals, the dancing, the joy, and whatever clowns bring. I don't know. Clowns are weird. I don't understand clowns at all, but I get it for some reason. But anyway, so this kid somehow was screaming in the background, takes Pennywise in, and Pennywise is killed. And you could kind of figure out why this entity takes Pennywise as a form, because once again, kids love clowns. Kids see clowns. This is safe, I guess. I don't know. John Wayne Gacy was. Anyways, they see him as safe, so therefore it feels like it's a way for him to eat, a way for it to eat people. It's really clever. I'll be honest with you. It wasn't, I thought it was going to be really cheesy if the actual reason why the entity looks like Pennywise, but it actually is effective and actually allows Madeleine Stowe's character to be a little more interesting, to be fairly honest, than what she was through the entire series so far. So he's taken away, and that's when the intro opens up, and we get the really creepy music. But this is, that's the episode. I mean, that it has 3 parts to it, pretty much 3 sections: the opening, the black spot, and of course the ending portion with the military. And outside of some minor quabbles and quibbles and so on and so forth, it's a really effective episode. It really is heartbreaking to watch Rich die. I'm assuming they're gonna have a funeral for him in the next episode. And Pennywise, who's supposed to be asleep, is now awake because the military can't stop their moron nature and greediness and trying to take over the world. As they do, everybody wants to rule the world. And here we are with Pennywise awake again, taking Will Hanlon. Yeah, so that's quite the entertaining episode. It is dark and disturbing and sad and horrifying and whatever else you could give it. It's still a really well put together episode. Eddie Muschietti, the writers, the staff, they put together something special with this episode. And but yeah, that is The Black Spot, the 7th episode, penultimate episode of the first season of Welcome to Derry. For my final score, 9.5 out of 10. I think it deserves it. Like I said, those minor quibbles keep it from being a full 10, which I think it could be if it would not deal with some like really weird stuff, especially with the military. Once again, it is what it is at this point. But 9.5 out of 10. Probably the best episode of the series so far. I think it's really effective, and I think it works. So there you go. With that said, that'll be my take. I do appreciate it. In the comments below, what did you think overall of this episode? What do you think overall the effectiveness of Rich dying, the effectiveness of the black spot stuff, the effectiveness of like how Pennywise became Pennywise? Let me know. So there you go. But with that said, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.